Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Closing the Patient Compliance Gap, How to Get Patients to Show Up, Adhere to Your Recommendations, and Generate More Revenue for Your Practice. Brought to you by integrativepractitioner.com and sponsored by Carewell and CoachCare. We have a few housekeeping notes to go over before we get started. If you have any technical questions or issues using the WebEx platform, please use the chat box and I will respond right away. If you have any issues with the audio, please click on the phone icon located above the chat window to receive the teleconference information. To ensure call quality for those who do need to call in, everyone's lines have been muted today. But we do encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar. Please type your questions into the Q&A question box. When selecting who your question should go to, please select all panelists. Please note we will take questions at the end of today's webinar. If you happen to get disconnected during the webinar, you can log on again using the instructions provided in your webinar confirmation email. But if you continue to experience difficulty, please email webinar@integrativepractitioner.com, and we will get back to you right away. This webinar will be recorded, and you will receive a thank you email with the on-demand materials within 2 business days. And at this time, I would like to welcome Kate Gandolf, CEO and co-founder of Carewell, Inc. Kate?
Thanks so much, Laura. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, How to Close the Patient Compliance Gap. It's co-sponsored today by Carewell and CoachCare, and this is Kate with Carewell. Thank you so much for making the time to attend. Carewell sets up custom patient-direct supplement dispensaries for health professionals, and CoachCare is a full-featured health and wellness technology platform that empowers your coaches to increase clinic revenue and improve patient care. So who is Carewell? Carewell is the leading online supplement dispensary with a strong focus on professional education. On our website at carewell.com/events, we host the largest database of educational events and free on-demand webinars. You can watch at any time, sort by your interest, and view all related products. Carewell understands that you and your practice are unique. That's why we are the only dispensary that mirrors the brand and product mix you have in your office. You tell us which brands and products you want in the store for your patients, and we do everything possible to make that happen. As a result, we currently work with over 1,000 brands and continue to grow. I would like to introduce our speakers for today, Dr. Mark Tager and Stewart Gandolf, MBA. Dr. Mark Tager is the CEO of Changewell, Inc. in San Diego and an early pioneer in integrative medicine. He has done more than 1,000 presentations and has extensive experience in health promotion, regenerative, and aesthetic medicine. He also conducts presentation coaching for healthcare professionals and practice enhancement training for A4M, Osher, Duke, AIHM, and others. He is the co-author of 10 books and more than 100 training videos. He has his medical degree from Duke University and his family practice in Oregon. Stewart Gandolf, MBA, is the CEO and Creative Director of Healthcare Success, one of America's leading healthcare marketing agencies. He has personally marketed over 1,500 practices for the past 20 years. He has been the speaker at hundreds of venues nationwide and is the publisher of the Healthcare Success Marketing Insight blog, which is read by over 19,000 subscribers worldwide. Without further ado, I am proud to introduce the co-authors of this recently published book, which is extremely comprehensive with checklists, how-tos, etc., and is titled Cash Pay Healthcare, How to Start, Grow, and Perfect Your Business. Dr. Mark Tager and Stewart Gandolf, over to you.
Thank you very much. Today, this is Dr. Mark Tager, and we're going to be speaking and teaching from Chapter 7 of our book, which is basically how to create the ultimate patient experience. Now, there's a question that Stewart and I ask in webinars and training programs, and I wonder if you can answer it because very, very few people can. How much is each patient worth to your practice? Now, if you know the answer to that, type it in right now. Let us see if you've got that. But what we find is that most people do not know the answer to that question. We're going to be working today with a model that I developed with Steve Mulholland back about 10 years ago, the concept of a conversion cascade. Now, no matter what kind of practice you have, whether it's aesthetics or integrative medicine, no matter what your discipline, these principles hold true. And the only way that you can actually answer how much a patient is worth to your practice is to understand each and every one of these steps, from awareness to phone management, the power of your internal and external marketing, from the call to the visit, the attention to the details, the art of the consult, how we move people to treatment with good outcomes and road mapping. We move from treatment to maintenance programs where we're able to upsell or get some better results. And then we move to cross-marketing. We expose patients to our new products and services. And finally, we ask for referrals. We build loyalty. We recognize that not every patient is equal. There are some patients, 10, 20%, that are worth 80 to 90% of your practice revenue. Now, what we do see are the breaks in the conversion cascade, the leaks. And these are the places where money is dropped from the process and where we lose patients. We lose them in the stage from awareness to call with an unclear value proposition, from the call to the visit with the leaky phone, from the visit to treatment with what we call the callous consult, from treatment to retreatment or maintenance, the compliance conundrum, from retreatment or maintenance to cross-marketing. Folks in the office are reluctant or don't know how to sell. And finally, there's the fear of asking to get those word-of-mouth referrals. So who are you? It's a good question. It's a good question for all of us. But who's your practice in the marketplace? You really want to have some clarity around that. And this has to do with your unique selling proposition. So is your presence in person, online, is it attracting the types of patients that you really want to treat? We often will do the elevator exercise, and it's a really good one for everyone in the practice to do. You meet someone in an elevator, they see your name tag, they see you're with a med spa, an integrative medicine center, a regenerative medicine center, and they say, great, you're a regenerative, integrative, aesthetic doc. You know, my mom wants to find a doc like you. Why should she come to see you? What makes your practice unique? Now, if each and every person in your office can't get that out in 30 seconds, you have a problem. And this is the first leak in the process. Stewart often talks about this concept of spaghetti marketing, so he's here with me right now. Stewart, why don't you talk a little bit about that as being a gap as well?
Well, thank you, Mark. Stewart here. And that's something that seems to really resonate with our audience. And Mark and I both have been talking for many years to practitioners about growing their business. And time and time again, when I ask doctors, how do you do your marketing now? And I often hear the concept of, well, we just throw spaghetti up against the wall and see what sticks. Now, clearly, that's one option, right? That's one option to do. But our argument here is not to resort to spaghetti marketing ever. Obviously in healthcare as providers and doctors, you didn't get there if a patient came in, we're just going to throw spaghetti up against the wall to see what sticks, right? That's not typically the best methodology. So years ago when I was preparing for a meeting, I coined this way of describing our approach, and really I would argue the right approach for virtually anything is to start off with proven strategies, like what works and what things have worked for doctors, what things have worked for hospitals, what works for corporate America, what works in marketing academia. So our philosophy, and Mark and I are on the same page on this entirely, is all about starting with best practices. What's most likely to be successful? I just got off the phone a few moments ago with a health plan looking to go into the Medicare, Medicaid market, and we talked about best practices. We start from what are best practices. The next step is to create a comprehensive marketing plan, not an academic exercise, not a 100-page document that's judged by its weight, but more a very specific strategic and tactical plan that takes these strategies and breaks it down into, for example, for a practice, doctor referral building if that's relevant, internet marketing, external advertising, branding, patient experience, public relations. So we recommend breaking all this down into those 6 categories, and then we have to implement, right? We have to, once we have the best laid ideas, we have to implement. And then the crucial section is to evaluate results. And we often talk about test, track, and adjust. And today, with the use of tracking numbers and online links and so forth, you can get very, very granular as to what works. And then from there, calculate what the ROI is and make adjustments to the plan, just like for this health plan we discussed a moment ago. I will note, Mark, that not a single person sent in the value of their patient. So
this totally does not surprise me.
Yeah, so that's the key is how many patients do we get, what's their value, what do we spend, calculate an ROI, and from there, and it's secular, can't say it today, but anyway, it's cyclical, thank you. I guess that's I was making 2 words there. But at any rate, it's a ongoing process which optimizes over time.
That's great. The next break really is an amazing one, and we see this all the time. In our workshops and trainings, we purposefully embarrass people. Now, how do we do that? I mean, we do it. We get some folks and we basically point them out and we call their practice and we put that on a speakerphone so everyone in the workshop can hear. And we hear things like, doctor's office, can you hold? Doctor's office, just a minute. Doctor's office, yeah, can I help you? So this concept, we spend all this money on marketing and to build awareness, and we get crippled by the leaky phone. Now, Stewart's actually done a lot of teaching and training in this, so let me turn this on over to him in terms of how calls are best handled.
Absolutely. This is something we talk about, and I think out of when we're doing our seminars, this is one of the major aha moments that comes across the room. You can actually see people getting it, how critical it is. It's really easy to talk about the ads and think about the money that we're spending there. And then meanwhile, we're sending it all to a call center or to a front desk, and the calls are being dropped. And we find that, for example, when we study this, and these are estimates based upon our experience of going through this and actually listening to about 1,000 calls. When we look at, are they gathering the information properly? About almost 100% fail. Are they offered an appointment at all? In other words, they ask, would you like to come in? Almost everybody fails. Were they in control of the conversation? Most people fail. Maybe almost half provide too much information. They go on and on and on. Do they even have an effective greeting? That should be pretty simple, right? We all agree what we're supposed to say when we answer the phone.
Let me get my pet peeve in here. Can and may. Can I help you? Sure, you could help me, but may I help you is really, and I want to hear the name of the person. I want to know, hi, this is Joan. Hey, may I help you?
Absolutely. So, and when we actually reveal this, so we actually monitor calls all the time for clients and mystery shop them, provide written reports, and or if you've got it, if you're actually using tracking phone numbers, you can listen to recordings through a HIPAA compliant platform. That's what we do for all of our clients. We insist. And what do we find? Well, we have long holds. Sometimes they're so long the caller's forgotten altogether. Busy signals. Insane. No answer. How could that be, right, Mark? I mean, how can that be? Polite but very confused answers. Rude can happen all the time. Harried environment. Sometimes they diagnose us over the phone. They tell us what we have. The receptionist making X dollars an hour is diagnosing. Once in a while, we're even told the doctor is not very good, Mark.
No.
So we've heard that before.
You know, this really gets to the point that one of the real major jobs of that person on the front desk is to affirm the practitioner. You know, did you know that Dr. Jones is one of the leading Botox specialists in the whole country?
Absolutely. Sure. And so the point is when they're getting these kinds of results, and instead hearing the doctor is good or bad or they're being diagnosed, patients are judging you. They are looking for clues, just like when you drive by a restaurant, you're trying to decide if you're going to go in or not. Does it look good? Does it look healthy? Sure. They're making decisions about the practice. So guess what? If she sounds harried when they call, your practice must be harried. If she sounds indifferent, your practice must be indifferent. This is an incredibly expensive mistake, and we're doing the short version here today. So this goes into more detail in the book. But if a practice spends $60,000, $5,000 a month on marketing a year, generates 300 inquiries. If they mishandle that, whoops, I guess I got a typo there. You could argue they have front desk has lost $30,000. But the average case, if it was worth $2,000, it's actually an opportunity cost of $300,000, which is far, far more expensive. So why is this happening? Why is this continually? And this is really, I would say 95% of practices that we judge do a really pretty horrible job at this. So why is this such a common problem? Well, for one thing, they try to educate patients over the phone. A lot of times they get into complicated insurance pricing. One of the huge things is there's too many competing tasks. They check people in, they check people out, they do data entry, they file, they order pizza for the office party. It just becomes a completely unaccomplished.
It's gluten-free pizza, so it's okay.
All right. So at any rate, insufficient training and management, poor compensation means you're getting the wrong people oftentimes. We don't take it seriously. Management doesn't really understand the value of this. Everybody may grumble, but let's go back to that $300,000 a year of opportunity cost. It's time to take some action here. Incidentally, we work with some businesses that may have hundreds of locations. That opportunity cost could be in the millions of dollars, not $300,000. So how do you do better? The new patient, always a priority. Teach everybody. For example, if somebody calls our office and none of our consultants are available, I'll take the call. We practice what we preach. Set your staff up to succeed. Don't give them too many things to do. Get the front desk, get the call off the front desk. Nominate your best people to answer the phone first. Make sure you hire right and pay right. Train them. Have call outlines and scripts. These are critical factors. I want to make sure we have a perfect greeting on the scripting part. We want to discover the need. Going back to what Mark said a moment ago is establish the value. Why should I come to you? Dual alternative close is old sales school, but it still works. Okay, we have an appointment available on Monday morning or Tuesday afternoon. Which would work better for you?
Sure.
And, of course, be available to answer objections. Mark?
Great. Okay, so we've now had the perfect phone answering, and they're ready to show up for the visit. And when they show up for the visit, by the way, every aspect of that experience, from the time they close the door and start walking in from their car to the office, to using the restroom, sitting in the reception room. It shouldn't be a waiting room. It should be a reception room. Every interaction they have with the staff, with the environment, needs to be top-notch. But where we do see drops are in what we call the callous consult. Well, what do we mean by that? You know, if you look at the consult, this is really where you have to be your best. If you're doing a free consult, let's say for aesthetics, or if you're doing an intake for someone for hormones or any integrative medicine procedure, you've got to be there. And really, if you think about it, there's three tools you have. There's tincture of time, T-I-M-E. There is the ability to provide empathy to patients and the process of inquiry. And inquiry really meaning that you ask the kind of questions that move you from being directive to supportive, from being the dictator to being the patient's guide. You know, we're making great improvements in conventional medicine. Tremendous improvements. In the classic 1984 study where they videotaped interactions with residents in internal medicine, the patient was interrupted in 18 seconds, and less than 2% of patients were allowed to finish their narrative. Well, we're doing so much better, because now, and when that study was revisited in 2007 with 264 audio tape visits, the patient was interrupted in less than 23 seconds. That's not a lot of time to tell the story. So empathy, patients judge empathy is very important. We get better treatment adherence, improved enablement. You know, it actually, when we lose empathy, it increases the rate of medical errors. We get better outcomes for multiple conditions. So that's important. Now, I just want to point to one study that I just love. It's a sham acupuncture study done by Ted Kapczyk in Harvard. He took 262 subjects with irritable bowel syndrome. And what they decided to do was they had a control group that got no care whatsoever. And then they had two therapeutic groups. Now remember, these are just needles put in at random, so it was placebo treatment. In one, they just did the placebo treatment. In the other, they did an augmented visit. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Basically, a very supportive patient-practitioner relationship. And it was 6 weeks. It was blinded, 3-arm, great study. Let me just go over what they did in the augmented one. That was brilliant. Ideal communication. They asked questions concerning symptoms, how irritable bowel syndrome related to relationships, lifestyle, possible other things. They looked at cause and meaning. They used a warm, friendly manner, active listening, such as asking for clarification, empathy. I understand how difficult IBS must be for you. They communicated confidence and positive expectations. You know what? I've had a lot of positive experience treating IBS, and I look forward to demonstrating that acupuncture, remember this is sham acupuncture, is a valuable treatment. And the piece I love the best is 20 seconds of thoughtful silence while feeling the pulse or pondering the treatment plan. This concept of presence and being there with your patients, very important. And as you would suspect, in all of these outcomes, global improvements, symptom severity, adequate relief, quality of life, the best group was the augmented group that did better than the limited one, which did better than the control group. You know, we want to drop the gun. We don't want to have a prescription, a pill for every ill, but we also don't want to have a supplement for every symptom. So, you know, telling people what they should do. We want to engage them in a process of inquiry. And, you know, we see this beginning of the disconnect in the consult around the provision of education. And, you know, we all like to think we do a great job educating our patients, but look at the data. 40 to 80% of medical information is forgotten immediately. The more we present very often, the less that patients recall. And when they do remember the information, almost half of that is incorrect. So the good news is that technology is coming to our aid to address this concept of the compliance conundrum, why patients don't adhere to our recommendations, why they don't repurchase their supplements from us, why they don't show up for the next appointment. And this is where both CoachCare and CareWell come in as technology platforms that allow you to lay out a plan and to make sure the patient shows up again, including periodic visits. We want to be able to provide the support for health behavior change. So if I ask individuals, I say, how important is health behavior change for well-being? They say, oh, it's the most important thing. Then we ask, how good a job are you doing? Well, in reality, we're not doing that great a job. You also want to provide the regular products, the regular supplements that people need and make this convenient for them. So both CoachCare and CareWell provide technological solutions there. So let me just talk briefly about CoachCare. This is a technology that we actually discussed along with 130 other technologies in our book, but we're very impressed with what they do. And they have this custom branded platform that allows you to configure the workflow and the protocols. They have a great client mobile app, and this is so important today to have that. So they're able to, when we say coach, by the way, anybody who's working to get patients to make health behavior change is a coach. It can be an actual coach or a nutritionist or the practitioner or the physical therapist. But we have these real-time tracking devices that are available as well. I'll mention them. There's scheduling and messaging. There's alerts and notifications. And all of this reporting takes place within a HIPAA-compliant environment. So this is the client mobile app, and it has some, it's great for the scheduling on the go. They can track their meals and their exercise and get progress tracking. And again, it's HIPAA-compliant. There's a very robust and configurable administrator and coach dashboards. And, data, having these metrics is so important for both efficiency and effectiveness. Another way to generate some additional revenue for your practice is through the provision of these real-time tracking devices that track sleep. They can track weight, heart rate, and you're able to provide these to the patient and resell them as well. Now, Coach Care has worked on many fronts, but they're really probably most well known for the work they've done in helping clinics achieve significant weight loss outcomes. And some of their data, they're really the leader in weight loss clinic technology. 90% of clients report high satisfaction with the platform. 91% use it at least once a day, the apps. They've got over 2,500 clinics using Coach Care and over 70,000 patients in this system. And client engagement is very high. 2/3 of the clients continue to use the devices after 1 year. 75% complete the consultation. They weigh in 3 times a week. And so you can see that they get really, really good engagement. Now, why do we recommend having an online platform? Here's the problem. Patients, when you lay out your therapeutic regimen, they will buy that first supplement from you. They want it now. They want to start their regimen immediately. They're excited. The problem is that this compliance drops off dramatically. And so we look at the data, you know, about 30% in both the nutraceutical and cosmeceutical sales will come back and buy their first refill from you. Then it's 15% after that. And, you know, what happens is this negotiation. And in fact, we really do need to train all of our staff to answer this question very succinctly and very positively and very affirmatively. When the patient asks, can't I just buy this same supplement from Walmart, Kmart, CVS, or get it online? Your people must be able to respond with the argument about quality, effectiveness, safety. In fact, maybe the best one is, you know, if you get this product elsewhere, we can't guarantee the results of our treatment. Dr. Smith knows that she will get these great results using these products, but you might be getting something that's counterfeit, expired. It may take you may need to take 10 of these supplements to get the one from the supplement in the professional strength that we provide. And what happens is we lose revenue because we haven't made it easy for patients to repurchase. So they don't want to drive back to our office, and they don't want to go to multiple websites. So this is really the benefit of an online dispensary. It's free, it's easy. You can add your favorite products or all in one place. Shipping is for the most part free, improves your revenues, and it boosts convenience and compliance. And so CareWell is a preferred vendor here. They are really offer a complete solution. It's branded for your site, and again, they also are the only ones that I know of that can do private label fulfillment from multiple brands. Let's just turn very briefly to selling. This is another place where we see things dropped, and I'm going to have Stewart come in just a minute because he teaches a lot of this as well. Okay, fill in the blanks. Selling is, what do you got? When we ask people this, here's what they say. Most of it is negative. It's distasteful. It's dishonest. It's manipulative. It's the used car salesman. I'm not good at it. I hate it. There are a few people who say, look, you know, it's positive. It's essential to life. It's helpful. It's supporting. It's professional. It's a natural ability. Those people are few and far between. But really, if we think about it, it's an exchange of value. Your patients want a result, and they're willing to pay for the chance to achieve it. Your job is to help them get what they want. And really what you're doing is facilitating a win-win value exchange. So there's a couple of questions you might ask, and Stewart's got some magic ones at the end of this section. The expectation, what outcome or result does the patient want? Is it realistic? Do we have something that can match up to that? Can I frame an offer to provide this product or service in a way that serves the patient's best interests? And what problems or objections do they have? What's standing in the way? How can we get patients to move beyond this? So what selling really is, if you think about it, is helping your patients get what they want. Now, to do that, you've got to build trust. Selling can be something that's prescribed or part of a treatment plan. It can be recommended. It can be requested, asked for by the patient, or it can be offered, made available by the practice. And, we could apply this to the practice as an entity, the services or treatments or the products. And then there are 5 things that you should never do in selling. You never think of selling as a contest between you and the patient. Never present a product or service by features alone. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. You really want to connect every single feature to a benefit. Never make decisions with your patient's wallet. Don't ever think, you know what, I know they can't afford this, so I'm not going to present it. You don't know. Never assume you know what they need. Ask them. And never forget, your job is to facilitate this value exchange. So we see this very often with nutraceuticals and cosmeceuticals. In offices today, 15, 20, 25% of the revenue for the practice may be through office dispense products. And there's an elephant that's in the room. There's an elephant we see all the time. And it has to do with the fact that, we're all not very comfortable talking about money. Because everything we think and everything we feel about money is learned. And there are these taboos about discussing politics, religion, sex, and money. And it makes this sort of discussion mysterious and bad. I mean, you don't go to somebody in a cocktail party and say, oh, hi, Joe, how much money do you make a year? That just doesn't happen. So we have this discomfort. And if you think about it, we've done this exercise. It's a really interesting one to kick around with your staff. There's some big ahas about this. This is a great buy lunch and talk about it. What's your earliest memory of money? What messages, ideas, and attitudes about money were conveyed to you by parents, peers, others in your community? And how have these attitudes and messages affected your decisions about the money exchange with patients? Great lunchtime activity to talk about. Your perception of money will get in the way of your ability to provide the win-win value exchange for the patient. It will get in the way of you recommending products or services that you might consider expensive. So remember, never make decisions with your patient's wallet. You also want to make sure that you're not providing any recommendations that won't meet patients' expectations. This is going on the other side of the spectrum, where you've actually crossed over a little bit. You want to know thy product and honestly and with integrity strive to make a match. I talked a little earlier about the importance of benefits. Hold on to these 4 statements so that you can, in order to, which lets you, and that's important because we only provide professional grade supplements, and that's important because we know that the product is safe, potent, and of the highest quality. So hold on to these. They're very important. That you should never mention a feature without a benefit. Well, Stewart, you got a rabbit, you got a hat, and you got some magic questions, so get on in here and
thanks, Mark. One of the things I brought up in the book, or on some of the work that we were doing together as we were writing it, was to acknowledge that this could be a whole book in and of itself. Sure. This is a huge topic. And so to leave with just a couple thoughts to make this easier, I would say if I had 3 points to make, one was Mark's features and benefits that he just discussed. Actually, maybe 4. The comfort is another thing. Number 3, which isn't a slide 4, is make sure that you have somebody who is the best person, not only at comfort level, but really can do this. I've seen the most successful practices have somebody who probably says, give it to me, I'm the closer. Having that kind of confidence is really critical. Now, if you don't have all this and you don't have time for years of sales training, I just want to give you one important fact, which is the magic in sales is not who's talking, not you talking. It's getting the patient to talk, getting the patient engaged. Amateur salespeople all the time find themselves doing 80% of the talking, and the patient will say, yeah, just to get rid of them. They're intimidated. They feel the pressure. It feels like they've got what we call commission breath, and it's uncomfortable for everybody. And if you find yourself talking too much when you're selling, you're in trouble. And so the short answer, the best key I can give somebody who's not a really good salesperson is just to ask them good questions to get them engaged. If you can't get them engaged, you have no hope of ever getting them to say yes later on. So these are some of the favorites. that I see, and beyond the fact that these are good sales questions, these are good just human communications questions. You could use these when you're treating patients, right? So what were you hoping we could do for you is one of my very favorite questions. It's an open-ended question. For example, this could even be applied on the phone when they call. It's like, Mary, what exactly were you hoping we could do for you? It's very clarifying. That also gives you the benefit that Mark was referring to later that you want to swing back to at the appropriate time. How long have you considered this is very enlightening. Maybe they've thought about this. For example, weight loss, Mark mentioned it a little while ago, typically has been years before patients take an active or plastic surgery, for those of you in that field. What would you like to change specifically? So, for example, weight loss, I just taking that analogy a little further, is it that they want to look better or maybe they want to keep up with their grandchildren? What exactly is it they're looking to change? What's most important to you about blank? Right? That's another very illuminating question. What concerns do you have? You can't answer objections if you don't know what they are.
Sure.
Why haven't you done this in the past? I can find out what the objection they had before is likely to be the objection that they're going to have now. Remember this is a lever. And if there's one thing that would hold you back, what would that be? That one is one of my favorites I got from a friend and mentor of mine years ago, where somebody says, yeah, let me go home and think about it. And so the answer there is, totally understand, zero pressure on our part, but let me ask you, if you decided not to do this and there was something that would hold you back, what would that be? And they'll tell you exactly what the issue is, because they already know, and they don't want to think about it, they already know what the issue is, and that's a way of clarifying. So this, again, is just a taste, but these are some very powerful questions. I urge you to try them.
Yeah, that's great. In the area of health behavior change, I've often sort of said, you already know how you're going to sabotage your plan. So why don't you, because you've done that before, why don't you just tell me that now so we can get that out in the open?
Excellent.
Okay. We're coming down the home stretch here, and there is another really important component, and that is asking people to be an ambassador, asking them to give you a referral, asking them to cut a little video testimonial or go on social media. So Stewart's going to talk a little bit about how we overcome this fear of asking and what that really entails.
So absolutely, Mark. So again, having done this for years, both of us have in different ways, we find that when we ever get to this topic of asking patients for referrals, first of all, it's possible, or certainly happens a lot, where some of the people in the audience dismiss us immediately. Oh, I've heard I should do that. I've already heard I should do that. Really? Then are you doing it? Well, no. Well, why not? Well, first of all, a lot of doctors just don't understand the value of why I should ask patients for referrals. I think the biggest one is the fear of looking needy, greedy, cheesy, sleazy. That's really what it comes down to. I don't want to beg for patients. I didn't, go to medical school or whatever my background is to become a salesperson. The fear of rejection, that would be terrible. Can I ask for a referral? No. That kind of tells you where you are, right, Mark? Right. And another thing is they don't know how. So we're going to spend time on the how part, hopefully to help you at least with that. And the key is to at least try it. I mean, at the end of the day, for today's webinar's sake, is just try this a couple times. So the first step is to make sure you ask them at the peak of their experience. It's funny, with my personal dentist, I once taught this to him, and I remember one of the tips is when they just compliment you is an indication that's a great time, right?
Absolutely.
And that's usually the peak of their experience. You don't want to ask them, if they're sitting there, if you're a surgeon and they've got, their gauze and they're bloody, and that's not the time. Later. Right. But in this case, my dentist I was in one chair at the hygiene chair, and I heard, oh my gosh, Doug, that was fantastic. I didn't feel a thing. He said, thank you. And she walked away. And I said, Doug, come here. That's the time you ask for a referral, right? Absolutely. You've got to get that timing perfect. Yeah. So on our scripts here, just quickly, one of the old standbys that some of my colleagues and I have been doing for a long time is, hey, I'd like to ask you for a favor. If you like what we've done for you here, I'd like you to send us someone else we can help in the same way we just helped you. They'd appreciate it, and we would too. Would you do that for them? So that way the focus is on giving benefits to the friends. Another way to do it, I love this one with staff. In essence, it's kind of like, oh, Mrs. Jones, we just love you. You're so great. Oh, my gosh, you lighten our day every time you come here. And do you have any friends like you? We want people like you to come into the practice because we think you're fantastic. And the patient, of course, says, oh my, well, thank you. And you guys recognize that kind of banter. Some people on your staff probably can pull that off, right, Mark?
Absolutely.
Oftentimes. It has to be sincere, right? You can't do it with somebody you don't really want to come back in. And then finally, a lot of times we train to this is looking for anecdotes to promote other things that you're doing in the practice. So, for example, if you had an integrated practice but you really wanted to focus on, I don't know, anti-aging, you could talk about that. So, hey, you know, glad you came in for our weight loss, so you seem to be doing really well. Something happened the other day that really concerned me. One of my patients was in for the same sort of thing, and she said, by the way, got anything for my husband? He's always dragging around. He feels terrible. He's just not himself these days. And I thought, oh my gosh, here we do, you know, anti-aging and energy and these kinds of things are a huge part of our practice. We had no idea that my patient base doesn't know about it. So if you know any, I'm just telling you this story so in case you or anybody else you know are suffering from that, make sure you send them to us so we can help them.
The other thing you'll want to do is you'll also want to note in the record that you've asked for referrals, because what you don't want to have happen is everyone asks and then it gets, you know, that does sound like you're begging. So when someone asks for a referral, please put it in the record. So we've talked a little bit about the importance of this conversion cascade. I asked you when we began how much a patient is worth to your practice, and true to our experience, no one was able to give us a number. But let's look at the value of a patient through this conversion cascade. You know, for getting patients, the process of patient satisfaction, patient experience, is pretty simple. You got to find them, you want to wow them, and then you want to grow them. So if we look at this, and again, we try to answer this question, how much is each patient worth to your practice? Let's look at an ROI. You're going to spend $8,000 on a promotional campaign. You're going to look at the return on investment, which is the total dollars from all the sources. So let's say that you get 40 prospects on the phone and online. That's only $200. That's a pretty good deal for the initial cost of a lead. And let's just say, hypothetically, that this patient is going to generate $2,000 yearly in terms of services, products, and fees. So we'll work with this scenario. Now, what if in the stages of conversion, we're converting on the phone at 50% and the consult at 50%? We have 40 prospects, 50% call to book a consult, 70% show up, and because not everyone who books shows up, 14 of those consults actually go on and we're able to get $14,000 because half of them booked a treatment. So we're at 1.75 to 1. Not great, it's not great. I mean, you're just kind of breaking even on that if you throw in your overhead. So let's take it up a bit. Let's say that we're able to actually get 3/4 of the people who call to book a consult and 70% of the people who show up to go on to consultation, and we book 50% of those consults. In this case, we're 2.75 to 1. So we've gotten 40 prospects. We've done 11 treatments. We've brought in $22,000. That's pretty respectable. What if we were better in the consult? We did the phone stage well, the consult well. So we were able to basically get 40 prospects, 3/4 of whom call to book a consult, 21 people show in our office, and we're able to get 3/4 of those people at $2,000. Now we've got a pretty good return on investment, 4 to 1. But what if we added the ambassador stage? And we just sort of said that, you know what, of those patients, let's say we got 3 ambassadors, and each of those 3 ambassadors brought in 2 new patients. Wow, now we're smoking, 5.5 to 1. Return on investment. But wait, as they say on late night television, wait, it gets better. Because what if, we could keep that patient for 10 years in our practice and they generated $20,000? Or what if we improve cross-selling so that instead of just $2,000, that patient now generated $3,000 a year? Or what if your ambassadors begat more ambassadors who then begat more ambassadors? Well, who knows? So the potential is sort of unlimited. So keep this in mind, this conversion cascade, going from the awareness to the call, to the visit, to the treatment, to the maintenance, to the cross-marketing, to the building of ambassadors. Look hard at how well you're doing on each of these stages. Identify whether or not you have any leaky spots. And if you shore them up, you will be actually making more money and more profit. So this is how to reach us.
Mark, you might as well tell yours.
Yeah, you know, the truth is, I got my slides to them late, and I didn't put myself in. I'd like to say that I'm so well known that everybody knows who I am, but you can just, if you want to get hold of me, I'm at Mark Tager. A lot of people hit me up on LinkedIn, and I like that. And my email is mtager@changewell.com. Stewart's information is here.
Yeah, so yes, you can subscribe to if you're interested in these kinds of topics. I urge you, of course, to get the book. Another thing, we have a blog, healthcaresuccess.com/blog. I'm Twitter, @Stewart Gandolf. LinkedIn is the profile is there. Email is simply stewart@healthcaresuccess.com. And we're an agency, but education is a big part of what we do, so I'm happy to help you.
Awesome. So those of you who are going to A4M, so this is our book. It's available on Amazon. It's available as Kindle. It's we like to think that we've created the playbook for growing healthcare practice. But if you are going to A4M, please stop by Coach Care. Their booth is 6057, and you can get the first 100 folks will get a free book that Stewart and I will autograph on December 14th. It's the Friday from noon to about 1:30. So that's what the book's about. The table of contents, I'll just speak to this for a minute. We're trying to be really thoughtful and to address the major questions that people have around how they can grow their business. Recognizing, of course, that people are at different stages of development. Some people are contemplating, some people are just starting, some people are growing, and then there's folks who just, they're crushing it and they just want to even get better. So we basically came up with 10 chapters, and we're looking at the kinds of practices, the practice structures, how do we make money and charge for services. We have a big chapter on what do we add, where do we start. Stewart's taken the lead on a chapter on how to profit from scientific marketing. You've heard from us today on this concept of creating the ultimate patient experience. We've got some great chapters on how to get patients from the internet and how to make social media work for you. And the piece that I often teach and train and coach is how do we get noticed, known, and remembered? How do we develop our presence in person, on camera, and online? So with this, I'll turn this back to Carewell. You can also get onto the coachcare.com website or Carewell for other information. Kate, let me turn this over to you. Why don't you take back the control, and thank you all for sticking in with us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Tager. Thank you, Stewart, as well. We're going to open it up for Q&A. So if you'd like to submit your questions via the Q&A box, and we'll get to them shortly. The first question that came in is, how important is it to give talks in the community?
Oh, let me give you a statistic on that one. This is so important, and it revolves around presence. There was a study at IFM presented year before last that said that the practitioners who valued live presentations made $28,750 a year more than their counterparts who didn't really value that. What you are selling ultimately is presence, the presence of the practitioner, the presence of the staff. Now, presence is mediated. So when you are one-on-one with a patient, your presence is at its greatest power, at the apex. But you have also great power in terms of the live one-to-many presentation. And if you learn those skills, if you get comfortable that way, you can address an audience of 15, 20, 100 people and funnel them into your practice, where you've got to come across as knowledgeable, caring, as competent. But these are all learned skills, and that's one of the things that I do in my day job is we actually coach practitioners to create a signature talk, to give that talk. And you know, many of the top people who present at the integrative and functional meetings are actually folks that we've coached to become better speakers. So you get more presence and more power. Really important.
And a follow-up to that, thank you for that, Dr. Tager, is any recommendations on tech tools for community presentations?
Tech tools. Well, you know, it starts off with a great PowerPoint presentation. And a great PowerPoint or keynote presentation, keynote, we like keynote better, has to have a structure, and you have to avoid the deadly sins, which are trying to get people to drink from your fire hose. Too many slides, too much information. You know, you're trying to show people how smart you are. Less is more. Bring it down. Also, may have a level of interactivity. You know, I will frequently speak to thousands of healthcare practitioners at large conferences, but I will always try to have some measure of interactivity. Turn to the person next to you, raise a hand, show me on a scale from 1 to 10 how important this is for you. So those are the PowerPoint. Less is more. Images are remembered better. So we try to keep slides simple and clean and not to have too many of them, because the reality is that when patients or people leave your presentation, that next day they will remember 4 of 20 slides. A week after that, they'll remember that somebody talked, but they're not sure what the doctor's name was. Yeah. And then, so you really want to be able to hone it down and keep it simple. I actually am a believer that simpler is better, particularly when you want to get across your presence. That's what people want. People want to know that you are caring, compassionate, competent, and you have the answer to their problem or question.
Thank you. Next question is, what do you think separates physicians who successfully prescribe supplements to their patients?
Sure, go ahead.
No, I was just, Mark actually is the expert on this because he works with so many practices with supplements. But I think in general, and Mark, I want you to add to this, but first of all, it's just actually people who are committed to doing it, right? That's the first thing, is commitment to having supplement sales, getting the team on board, getting past the fear of selling is a huge one, right, Mark? And I think really integrating it into the day-to-day practice. From the clinician standpoint, what do you think, Mark?
Well, you know, this is interesting because I was on a panel discussion with a physician from Cleveland Clinic, a very, very noted cardiologist. And he got up there and he said, well, you know what I believe? I believe that Americans have the most expensive urine in the whole world when they take all these supplements. That happens to be true. We do have a lot of B vitamins in our urine. But he was referring, I mean, he was back in the Stone Age. Well, what about genetic variation and chronic disease and medications like statins that deplete CoQ10? And, you know, there's so much information these days. But the successful practitioner finds the right motivation, first of all, for the patient. What is it that they are trying to accomplish? More energy, vitality, burn more fat as fuel, having a better sex drive, having hair growth and nail growth. So they find the motivators, but they are knowledgeable about the features and benefits, and they're able to also tailor nutraceutical programs. So you're tailoring it via genetics, you're tailoring it via chronic disease, you're tailoring it according to, you know, the patient's goals and objectives. And you walk, you know, you've got to walk the walk, walk the talk, in fact. So you want to be a strong advocate. Now, it's interesting because we've done surveys, and you can take a single practitioner, and there is a variance, any place from several $1,000s a month to $50,000 to $60,000 of supplement sales a month. And of course, here's where Carewell is critical. You want to let people know that you have a branded site where they can reorder professional-grade supplements that you have specifically picked out for that patient based upon their unique needs. The uniqueness is the important thing. Because, you know, these days, we've got an end around. We've got people who are doing genetic testing and going to labs, and they're actually more confused than ever before. So we need to be able to be that educator who tailors a precise treatment plan for that patient.
Great, thank you for that, Dr. Tager. And this one's directed to Stewart. Stewart, any advice on implementing a marketing plan with a small staff and a small budget?
That's a great question, yes. That's always a critical issue, is how do we actually begin marketing, and if we really have a tiny budget, and what can we do? It's hard to answer that without knowing the type of practice that we're discussing, but some things that always matter. So again, when we talked earlier about, there's a reason why we want to talk about phones today. The first step is to make sure that we're answering the phones properly. That is such an inflection point because most practices can double their number. If you double your effectiveness, think about it this way. To double your number of patient inquiries is hard. It takes effort. It takes time. But to double your conversion, if you're only converting 20% of prospective patients to 40, is a lot easier, and you can do that without spending a dime. You're already paying your staff. So looking at the front desk is a key issue. Asking patients for referrals is a key issue. Looking at some of the other opportunities that, what we talk about, if as an agency, when people say, well, we've already asked patients for referrals, we're already asking doctors for referrals, we're already in the community, we're doing the basics. Where do we go? And then usually in that case, I always come back to digital marketing. Not because, while we do love digital marketing, it's not because of that, but just because it works best. So depending on the practice, oftentimes the ROI from getting a good website, a solid website, doesn't have to be a fantastic website. There's some low-cost options out there, including with our own firm, but to get a solid web presence and to work to get, at least basic SEO. This is all covered in the book. There's a lot of things that are in the book that you can take a look at in terms of, SEO, reputation management, social media. So that would be a place to start, right, Mark? It's a big cover.
We cover that very extensively. I mean, the question we addressed in Chapter 8, how do I get patients from the Internet? And then how do I make social media work? Both of those, particularly, if you're going to attract millennials, the interesting thing, particularly in aesthetics, they come in and they know more about you, and they'll come before they step in your office and say, well, how's your dog Cosmo? Oh, I heard he was sick last week. I hope he's feeling better. And how was your trip to Maui last month? It's crazy. They know so much about you. So, it's very important to have that presence, to know that this is a fun, engaging place, to give the staff some exposure as well. All of those are particularly important. The other thing is that, again, and Stewart mentioned this, it need not be a daunting task to create a basic marketing plan. Who are we going to reach? How are we going to reach them? What are all the ways we might do that? Digital marketing is certainly one, being active in the community, giving talks, asking for referrals. All of these will drive people to you, but then they've got to have the wow. They've got to have that great experience. And the fastest way to drive a bad business out of business is with good marketing. So if you don't have the backup, if you're not able to deliver on that experience, then all of the marketing dollars in the world will not help or will not save you.
I want to add to that. That's one of the things we talk about in our seminars a lot, Mark, which is the classic 4 Ps of marketing. There's more now, but the classic 4 Ps are price, product, place, and promotion. And everybody focuses when they talk about marketing on the promotional aspect, but that's not even something you should think about till you have the right product in place. The product is everything. Why do you exist? What do you serve? What are the needs you answer? What are you there for? And then how do you do it? And what makes you remarkable? So all those things are critical. And then once we have that in place, the promotion through, because think about it, for example, on the social media stuff everybody's so excited about today, which we cover a lot in the book, it's a lot easier if your patients are wowed, right? You can go out there on social media, but if your patients are like, meh, they're not going to brag much, right? So yeah, that's a good starting point.
Right, great. Okay, it looks like we're pretty much right at the hour. We want to be respectful of everyone's time, and we want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you very much.
Awesome.
Yeah, we enjoyed it. Really good.
We had fun.
Thank you, Stewart. Thank you, Dr. Tager. Again, this webinar will be available through the on-demand section of CareWell events, and we'll email you as soon as it's posted. Again, this webinar is co-sponsored by CoachCare, a full-featured health and wellness technology platform that empowers your coaches to increase clinic revenue and improve patient care. Stop by booth number 6057 while you're at A4M between noon and 1:30 p.m. on Friday to receive your free copy and signed copy of Dr. Tager and Stewart's book, or you can visit CoachCare.com. CoachCare will also be emailing you a copy of a white paper which shares how virtual health technology can benefit your clinic. The other co-sponsor of the webinar is us, CareWell, where we understand that you and your practice and your protocols are unique, which is why we build a custom dispensary around what you are already doing in your practice. Our promise to you is that if we don't work with a brand you like, we'll reach out to that brand and start carrying their products, even if it's just for you. We currently work with over 1,000 brands, and our brand list is virtually unlimited. To sign up for free, go to carewell.com and click on Get Started. You can also email me directly at kate.gotteb@carewell.com. I will now hand it back to Laura to wrap things up.
Thank you, everyone, for a great webinar today. I just have a few housekeeping notes before we close out. Many of you have asked about the on-demand version of today's webinar. Everyone will receive an email within 2 business days with the on-demand version of today's webinar, as well as a PDF handout link of today's presentation. Also, if you could please fill out the short evaluation form that will appear once you close out of the webinar window so that we can better serve your needs in future webinars. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you to all of our speakers for today, and thank you to all of our attendees for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. This webinar was brought to you by integrativepractitioner.com and sponsored by CareWell and CoachCare. Have a great day, everyone, and thank you.